Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is fish. Let's take a moment and review some of the definitions or the ways that we use this verb. The first way the verb fish gets used can mean to attempt to catch fish. Since I'm using the word as a noun in the definition, I thought it could be helpful to have a little picture. So if you look at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, you can see a picture of many fish. Right? So the activity of trying to go and catch fish is the first way to use this verb. Another and semi-related way to use the verb fish can mean to search for something while one is underwater. And there are also a number of phrasal verbs that we will be discussing in just a moment that kind of change or alter the way that we use this verb fish. But for now, you should know that fish is a regular verb. To make the progressive form of this verb, all you need to do is add ing, and that forms fishing. The past tense and participle forms of this verb are made by adding ed. Our base verb, fish, ends with an unvoiced sound or an sh sound. This means the ed ending is going to make a t sound, and I'm not going to add an extra syllable as I say it. So the past tense and the participle forms should sound like this. Fished, fished. Okay? Now, as I promised, we're going to move on and discuss many different phrasal verbs with fish. The first one we'll discuss today is to fish around. Sometimes when people use this, it means they are sort of fumbling, which means you don't have a really good control over holding a particular item. You might be kind of holding and moving around several, but you're attempting to grab for something using your hands. So an example of how you might hear this used. Can you fish around your gym bag and see if you have an extra that I can borrow? I know I've heard people ask a question sort of similar to this. I really enjoy the activity of swimming, and sometimes I know I have forgotten a pair of goggles or things to type of eye covering. Sometimes my friends have, and so they've kind of asked, can you kind of go through, look through, see if you can grab an extra pair there? Another phrasal verb you might encounter is to fish around for. Generally means that someone is pursuing something indirectly. So instead of directly asking you to say something or to do something, right, it's indirect. So how you might hear this used could be, they've been fishing around for new hobbies for months, right? So maybe not directly trying something, but talking with people. What do you think of this hobby? What do you think of that one? When someone would use this, it would make it sound like they're not really making a lot of progress towards it as well. The next phrasal verb we'll discuss is to fish for. This can have several different meanings. We're going to talk about 3 of them. One way to use fish for is literally back to that first definition of attempting to catch. But here, what's going to come after the particle for is the particular type of fish. An example of this. They were fishing for catfish this morning. Okay. Another way to use fish for is similar to our first meaning of fish around. So again, you're kind of fumbling, moving through something, attempting to grab with your hands. So an example of this. She's fishing for her checkbook, but she can't find it in her huge bag. So kind of imagine someone moving things around, trying to grab that particular item. A third way to use fish for, again, can mean to pursue something rather indirectly. How you might hear this used. He always brags and fishes for compliments. So he's not directly asking people to praise, but he's saying things in hopes that someone is going to offer praise or compliments. Now, I have a few more phrasal verbs, but before we do that, let's quickly review some of the verb tenses that I've used in my examples here. So the first example, can you fish around, is an example of a modal. You might be asking someone about their ability to look for and attempt to grab something here. In the second sentence, they've been fishing around for. This is an example of the present perfect progressive or present perfect continuous, right? Talking about something started in the past, continuing into the present. The first example with fish for, they were fishing for catfish, is an example of the past progressive. So we're talking about an action that was ongoing during a particular period of time. The second fish for, she's fishing for her checkbook, that's present progressive, right? So we're talking about something that's happening now. And then the last example on the screen here, he always brags and fishes for compliments. This is an example of the simple present. So I'm talking about someone's habit or their routine. Okay. Now let's move on and talk about a few more phrasal verbs. The next one we'll discuss is to fish out or fish out of. When this gets used, many times someone is talking about pulling something from either a body of water, that could be a lake, an ocean, right? Or it could be a container of water. So you might think of a pot, something on the stovetop there. An example of this, he fished his ring out of the toilet. Ugh, this is an ew kind of sentence. It is a simple past tense sentence, so we're talking about completed, right? But that's the idea, that the ring fell off. Oh no, it's in this thing of water. A second way to use fish out of can mean just to find and retrieve something. An example of this, can you fish our notes out of the files in the conference room? Okay. So here you might have to flip through several things in order to find the thing that's wanted. This is another modal where we're asking someone if they're able to help with something. Another way to use fish out can mean to completely empty something of fish. An example of this, they have fished out their pond this season. So here's a present perfect sentence. It means they've caught everything. There are no fish left in the pond. And the last phrasal verb we'll talk about today is to fish up. Many times this means to yank or pluck something up and out of something else. An example of this. He fished his keys up from the basket and locked the door, right? So maybe, I know in some people's homes, they keep car keys and other things close to the door, or maybe in a container of some sort, right? And so this person is going to go yank or pluck something out of this basket. Now let's move on and talk about some words and phrases that are related to our verb of the day, fish. And of course, the first thing we're going to talk about today is just the noun form of this word. The noun fish has the exact same spelling and the exact same pronunciation as our verb. One way we use it connects back to the picture I showed you right at the beginning today. So we can be referring to a cold-blooded vertebrate animal that has gills and fins and lives completely in water. An example of how you might hear this used, I love watching fish in the aquarium, right? So again, we're talking about those animals moving around, existing, or living in this container of water. But a second way to use the noun fish is really to talk about food. So you might have somebody who asks you, would you prefer fish or chicken? Right? So they're kind of asking about the type of protein that might be served at a particular meal. Another related word you might encounter is the adjective fishy. Sometimes when this adjective gets used, it means relating to or resembling fish. So kind of reminding you of it. So an example of how you might hear this used, there's a fishy smell in this bag, right? So something that smells like fish. But a second way you might hear the adjective fishy used can mean causing feelings of doubt or suspicion. So you might not believe something to be true or correct. So how you might hear that used, does it seem like something fishy is going on? Right. So does something seem off, maybe not quite right in this environment? A noun you might encounter can take a few different forms. So you might hear someone describe themselves as a fisherman or a fisherwoman. And now in 2024, I think it's becoming more popular to hear fisher person, right? So it doesn't really matter. This is going to apply to any person who catches fish. So someone might ask, are you a skilled fisherman or fisherwoman? And sometimes people will use this as part of their profession if they get paid to catch fish. Okay? I've got two phrases that maybe you've heard people use or maybe you've seen. One phrase is to fish or cut bait. When someone uses this, they want you to make a choice, right? So it frequently gets used as someone is maybe struggling to decide, not committing to something, right? And here, someone is generally directing you in the imperative or giving you that command, make a choice. So, example of how you might hear that used, you've been putting that off all day, fish or cut bait. So this isn't really very specific as to what kind of decision someone's making. It gets used in a number of different circumstances. One last phrase for us to discuss today, and that is the phrase fish to fry. Now, when people use this, many times it's in the context with having other fish to fry. And so this phrase generally means one has other concerns or other interests that they need to focus on or that they need to pursue. So how you might hear someone use it would be something like, don't worry about that now, we have other fish to fry. So like we need to give our attention to this thing, not that. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.